We often hear about and cover the struggles that many Americans face when they try to land a good job. If you have a disability, the challenge of getting hired or even getting a response to an inquiry, much less a face-to-face interview, is significantly harder.
So, here's the thing. We're 22 years down the line towards democracy, and we're still no closer to integrating people with a disability.
And it's not just for people with developmental disabilities. I think culture needs to change in many companies working around diverse groups.
Can people with developmental disabilities work? And if they do, are they capable of completing the job the right way? Do they perform properly? And most of all, can a business, a company, or a team benefit from hiring them? Or do you think that having a person with a developmental disability in your group can drag the organization down? We are First Choice Family Services, and in this video, we will be talking about developmental disabilities in the workplace. We will be showing you some alarming facts about how people with developmental disabilities perform at work compared with others. In the end, you will be able to figure out if having a person with a developmental disability in the workforce is or is not a good idea for a business or an organization. Welcome back. We've got a fantastic video for you today, and we're more than sure you're going to enjoy it. But before we get into it, please ensure you hit the notification bell to stay tuned to our daily hacks and news about the DSP industry and the DD community. And if our videos help you improve your life by at least 1%, please consider subscribing or leaving a comment. Remember that we are here to serve you. Can people with developmental disabilities work?
The biggest issue around a person with an intellectual and developmental disability finding employment is the opportunity. I think a lot of times employers aren't, they're just not aware of what they need to do to help a person become employed.
A lot has changed since people with developmental disabilities were placed in mental institutions. However, it's not a secret that people with developmental disabilities still have considerable challenges in the workplace.
So I roll onto the ward one day, and this elderly patient takes one look at me and yells at the top of her voice, "What's wrong with my doctor?"
In developing countries, 80 to 90% of people with developmental disabilities of working age are unemployed, whereas in industrialized countries, the figure is between 50 and 70%.
The unemployment rate for those with a disability is more than double the rate for those without. We interviewed economist Douglas Cruz, himself a paraplegic, via Skype.
It's not just a matter of people with disabilities, staying at home and collecting disability income. It's a matter of people who want to work, are not as easily able to find work.
Can a business benefit from changing their employment procedures to hire people with developmental disabilities? Now, as harsh as this might sound, an employer may wonder about hiring a person with a developmental disability. They could be full of questions like,
let's say if it snows, are you going to be able to get into work?
But are the concerns valid?
But you can understand, or can you not understand, why an employer would be concerned about all those sorts of things?
I do understand, but on the other hand, I've worked around people who do not have disabilities, who do not come to work and who do not work. So, I mean, to me, I understand the doubt and the question, but you are discriminating just based on the what-ifs of someone's disability.
What can people with developmental disabilities bring to the business table? As you see, there is not much to fear when employing a person with a developmental disability.
In the last few years, we've seen a greater push towards having more inclusion, having more voices of disabled people in the conversation, along with other voices you may not always hear.
Many businesses are trying to include people with developmental disabilities who truly love their jobs versus having people who don't feel like they fit in there. At first, it was a matter of compassion and charity, but then it turned into something different and exciting, something that they indeed weren't expecting.
If you hire a person with a disability, the retention rate is really high.
Mark Wafer, who owns 7 Tim Hortons franchises in Toronto, is one of the first business owners who realized this. 18 years ago, he decided to hire people with developmental disabilities, and he stumbled on what turned out to be a money-making machine.
It can cost me up to $4,000 to replace a frontline worker in a Tim Hortons. Now, if my turnover rate is 40% and my colleague down the street is 75, and we're both doing just as good a job, I'm making more money.
How much of this is about charity for you?
Zero. None.
In New York City, Rich Donovan, a Canadian man, is dedicating his life to coach business owners on how to profit from hiring people with developmental disabilities with something that he has now called Return on Disability.
This is a charity. It's not a special job for special people. There's real profitability in driving this book.
Is this initiative capable of spreading into larger businesses? Or is it something condemned to only happen in a few small organizations? In Connecticut, a Walgreens distribution center proved that using people with developmental disabilities in the workforce is advantageous for big companies.
Right now we're between 40-45% of the people inside the facility at all levels, so director all the way down, have a disability.
Scott Sylvester is the manager who runs the distribution center where there is no them.
It's obvious to say that it's the right thing to do from a heart feel-good perspective, but it really is truly from a business perspective. The workforce that we have in the facility, they're dedicated, they come to work every day, they give 100% every day, they have good attitudes, they thoroughly enjoy the opportunity to work.
When a developmental disability becomes an advantage. As you see, what might have started out as a charity initiative has become a competitive advantage for those organizations who have opened their hearts and made an effort to see beyond differences in a beautiful life metaphor.
We should be included in the conversation because our skills and our knowledge and our perspectives are invaluable. Every job advert you see will say that a company is looking for problem solvers, people who think outside the box, great team workers. Well, we are nature's problem solvers because we live in a world that was designed without us in mind.
Each day, more businesses realize that having people with developmental disabilities in the workforce is a good thing.
They're very specific and very clear, as opposed to possibly a neurotypical person that may try to slide in at 9, 10. The folks that are on the spectrum will say, hey, I arrived at 9:02 today. Do I need to work until 6:02 today?
And your reaction to that?
Don't worry about the 2 minutes, we're okay.
The advantages of including people with developmental disabilities in the workplace are so nuanced that they frequently are hidden in plain sight.
We analyze things in a very specific way.
Briefer is one of 4 recent hires here with autism spectrum disorder.
There are others that are very more detail-oriented than I am, and are much better with numbers.
Well, it's an accounting firm, I guess. Being good with numbers is probably a good thing.
It is. So it puts us all at a huge advantage.
But of course, people on the spectrum typically have trouble socializing, communicating, an obvious handicap.
Stories like this have encouraged professionals like Dr. Hannah Barron-Brown to open business owners' eyes to the significant opportunity to hire people with developmental disabilities.
Companies should be begging people like me to work for them because what we have to bring is exciting, is under-recognized, and woefully underutilized. We do so much more than tick a diversity box.
So what do you think? Do people with developmental disabilities deserve a chance? Now, it is your time to move. Get services. If you have a developmentally disabled family member who needs support, please click below or in the description to get uncompromised DSP services. Become one of our staff. Remember that the First Choice Family Services doors are always open for results-driven professionals. Feel free to show your support to the developmentally disabled community by donating or participating in our charity and campus ambassadors programs. Get involved. Be social. Finally, get in touch with us through our social media channels to be updated on the news in the DSP industry and the developmentally disabled community. And if you like this video, please share it with your friends in need of a job after you subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. And remember, First Choice Family Services is your information resource for the DSP industry. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you can stay connected.